Right, let's get started. Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will seek Parliament's approval to spend more than the approved 78 billion Ghana cedis during the presentation of the 2019 mid-year budget review today. Now, a statement from the Finance Ministry reveals that this presentation will see an upward revision of the 2019 appropriations ceiling and its underlying measures in order to achieve the objectives of the 2019 budget theme of expanding the economy and increasing jobs. Ahead of the presentation, Joy Business's George Viafe has been speaking to a Deputy Finance Minister, Kweku Kwate.
New ones would happen, some new tax measures will be introduced.
Well, yes, there will be new measures, but as I have indicated, they have been carefully considered, but they won't be as comprehensive as perhaps in the past tax measures have been. These are very specific interventions to achieve specific fiscal objectives. And so, yes, there will be a few revenue measures, some of which we have already hinted. For instance, that there would be some modifications to the luxury vehicles levy. We have listened over the period that we have implemented it. We have listened to the stakeholders. We have listened to those who have expressed concerns one way or the other. And having made our minds what we think is the best responses to the feedback we have got, we consider that this mid-year review is an opportunity to introduce those changes. So, yes, there would be some revenue measures, but overall, our objective, as I indicated, is to deepen the actual objectives of the 2019 budget, namely to promote economic growth, to generate jobs, and to promote prosperity. When you bear that in mind, it gives you some sense of even the kind of measures, revenue, for instance, that you'd want to introduce. If, as we indicated, we're looking to grow the economy, then you introduce revenue measures very cautiously, and you would see on Monday that the measures that we introduce are very creative measures, but some of them are just to respond to concerns that we have heard in respect of some of the measures that were introduced last year.
You've had 6 months of the year already.
Full version of that interview later on the AM show. Now, you can join the conversation on social media. Use the hashtag #MidyearBudget19. Okay, but why don't we very quickly see what's happening in Parliament? Roland Walker is there to see how it's all shaping up for the mid-year review. Roland, good morning. We have a slight delay, but we should soon see Roland on our screens, and he'll walk us through exactly what is unfolding at the House of Parliament this early. Here he is. Roland, good morning.
Slight delay, but we all know the reason why we're here is because the Finance Minister is here for the mid-year budget, and we know that those appropriations essentially will put into perspective how government intends spending whatever it collects and whatever the receipts will be from outside our shores. But more importantly, we need to put issues into perspective. Already, we know that we'll be having those live discussions crossing over into Parliament right from studio, and then also ultimately taking that live discussion and then having that live address before Parliament by the Finance Minister. But right here, it looks like everything is all that. Just let me just do a brief of the descriptions. UCS Ghana, they are the main company that tend to do the cleaning around here and look at all the necessary things, making sure everything is up to speed by way of the hygiene, the sanitation, and the cleaning. And they're already ready. You can see that everything is being prepared to make sure that the event takes place. Already up there, we've seen a number of the TV crews, the radio stations, as well as the assembling of the creme de la creme of the media who hope to cover the event from 10 a.m. this morning. While we do our bit, we have to put issues into perspective. The concern has always been that we're raising enough revenue, but we're spending more of it, not only on the social side or on the expenditure on welfare, but also a lot more on trying to just improve our current debt situation, because we have a lot of interest to pay. We have to be realistic. But for those who tend to add to the debate, who are in think tank, who are in academia, and do the discussions on the economy and generally how we need to improve a state, the concern would always be how not only what we're spending, how we're raising it, but also how we're not being fast enough in terms of improving the fundamentals or the structure of our economy. As again, it has to be stated that about 3.4% of the 7.2 average of how the economy performed in 2017, 2018 and the first half of this year are largely due to the extractive industry. The services sector, again, just averages about 1.1%. There's a concern for many other related people, because if you look at it being tied with agriculture at that same percentage, then it raises issues about how well we're doing in order to improve the situations of young people who come out of the universities and the colleges who need more jobs. We'll be speaking to a number of experts, but of course you'll be also doing justice in the studio as you speak to a number of the experts we've lined up this morning. But while you watch in the studio, and you also tend to get the live feed from right here in Parliament, please make sure that you continue with the hashtag and then also interact with us on all our social media platforms. Join News on TV, on Facebook, at Join News on TV on Twitter, and also watch us live through Major Online TV on YouTube. Now back to the studio.
Thank you very much, Roland. And the hashtag, of course, is MediaBudget19. We'll be bringing you full and exclusive coverage right here on the Joy News channel. But let's go and get on with the news. And the rector of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Professor Kwamena Kwanza-Addo, has condemned recent attacks on journalists, calling for an end to the practice. A recent report by the Media Foundation for West Africa revealed that 31 journalists had been attacked between January 2017 and June this year. Ghana's drop in the 2019 World Press Freedom Index and recent attacks have prompted calls for media freedom to be defended. Professor Kwanza-Addo was speaking at a graduation ceremony of the Institute. There's more in this report.
Earlier this week, the Defend Media Freedom campaign was launched to demand an end to attacks on media personnel and ensure a freer media in Ghana. The campaign gauged the views of a number of senior members of the fraternity who, among others, are asking government to put in place mechanisms to ensure journalists discharge their duties in safety. Speaking at the 13th congregation of the Ghana Institute of Journalism, Rector Professor Kwamena Kwanza-Addo added his voice to many who have already called for the need to defend media freedom.
Venture also to add my voice of condemnation to a worrying trend, which is violence against journalists in Ghana. There has been several reports of violence against journalists, and indeed one journalist was killed. Why he was killed is still a subject of investigation, but the trend has been that there has been a number of attacks on journalists, and that does not augur well.
Graduates, some who are already practicing journalists, shared their thoughts on the need for an independent and free media.
If the judiciary is independent, if the legislature is independent, if the executive is independent, I think the media should also be independent.
There should be no limitations to media because it plays a very crucial role to the development of every nation. You know, so if the media will be allowed to do their work independently, it will be in the favor of everyone.
They should be able to allow the media do its job. Nothing should interfere with the media's job anyhow. I think the media should have their freedom in terms of gathering news and all of that.
Vanessa Akmara's report read to you.
And soon these will be those at the front line bringing you news, hopefully not at risk to their lives. Now, International Media Freedom Organization Reporters Without Borders has thrown its weight behind Ghana's Defend Media Freedom campaign. Daphne Pellegrino, who is North America Advocacy Officer for the organization, says it's exciting. Media organizations and personnel are standing up and defending themselves. She spoke to JoyNews at the Congress of the International Federation of Agriculture Journalists in the USA. Prince Appiah is part of the team in Minneapolis in the US. Here's his report.
So the World Congress of the International Federation of Agriculture Journalists and Ag Media Summit is still ongoing in Minnesota, USA, and one of the major issues being discussed is press freedom by the Reporters Beyond Borders. The issue currently going on in Ghana with the campaign started by JoyNews on defending press freedom is one question we put to the official of Reporting Beyond Borders, and this is what she had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an incredible thing. To see journalists supporting journalists is a huge, huge step toward the kind of freedoms that we are working toward every day ourselves. And we can't do it without journalists who are reporting on these issues and who are supporting one another. So that's incredible. Yeah, no, we are seeing that across the world. I mean, journalists supporting journalists is something that's happening not just in Ghana, but in the United States and in Latin America, and ensuring that the stories of journalists who are killed, like in Ghana, or arrested or being told is a huge step toward liberation for journalists.
And what role or what support do you think ordinary members of the public can give to some of these campaigns? So they
ordinary members of the public?
Yes.
I mean, understanding the role that journalists play as being critical to the functioning of a healthy society is the first step. And I do think that there needs to be better education across the globe in media literacy so that the public understands the role that journalists play, the work that they're doing, how they find the truth. And I think that's a critical first step.
Again, she continued to emphasize that the issues about media and journalists being attacked should be regarded as a national security and must be addressed as such.
Based on our 2019 World Press Index, we found that cyber harassment was becoming this issue that was affecting journalists all over the world, whether it's in the United States, in Ghana, as you say, and even in these countries in Scandinavia that are traditionally considered to be the safest places in the world for journalists. And what's scary about cyber harassment is that it hasn't been taken as seriously as it should be because it's happening online and it's not necessarily always considered an occupational hazard of being a journalist. And so that's what's concerning to us, is that cyber harassment is not being taken seriously as something that can translate to physical violence.
The World Congress is still ongoing in Minnesota, and a lot of issues will continue to be discussed to help journalists that have come here to compare with their home countries how farming and agriculture is done. My name is Prince Appiah, reporting from Minnesota, USA.
Right, Nancy Pellegrino of Reporters Without Borders speaking to our very own Prince Appiah there. But back here at home, the neonatal care unit at KNUST Hospital has received 2 incubators worth $20,000 from Kukuruku charities. Now, the hospital, before receiving these incubators, had to refer severe cases to the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital. Founder of Kukuruku Charities, Kwame Sevakan, says it is a modest contribution to reducing death of preterm babies.
KNUST Hospital provides, among others, outpatient, laboratory and maternity services. However, insufficient incubators compels authorities to fall on Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital in emergency situations. Dr. Oseusu Ansah is Director of Health.
Usually, when we have such cases, we would have to refer them to Komfo-Anokye.
Mr. Sevakan launched a project 100 incubators in 2015 to mobilize public support to purchase incubators for various hospitals. So far, the foundation has donated 32 incubators to health facilities across the country. A gesture, he says, is giving back to society.
We're doing this because we want to give back. That is all it is. It's just a spirit of giving back. And giving back to people who are, as we normally say, less privileged. And we're hoping that the little that we're doing, our widows might, would go a long way to save these preterm babies and give hope to their mothers as well. I mean, if you've had a child before, I'm sure you would know the stress and the strife that you have to go through before you finally put to bed. And sadly, if you have a preterm child and there's no infant incubator to take care of that child, and you lose the child, I don't think there's anything more painful or stressful than losing a child.
Ken West Vice Chancellor Professor Kwesi Obridanso lauded the initiative.
Just to thank Okroko Charities for this kind donation of 2 incubators at a cost of over $20,000. Because we do not have one in our hospital. What we have is malfunctioning. And for us to have these beautiful, brand new incubators, I think it will go a long way in helping us manage preterm babies within our hospital. And you know, we live in a community, or we are surrounded by communities that are not too well off in terms of financial standing in society. And therefore we have a lot of preterm babies being born in our hospitals. Oftentimes we are unable to help with respect to their management. And these incubators will really help us to be able to manage these preterm babies.
Now, before we go back to Minnesota, where Love FM's Prince Appiah has been adjudged the best young leader in agricultural journalism by the International Federation of Agricultural Journalists. Now, Prince's documentary, Desert Tomatoes, and another report on post-harvest losses at Drobon earned him the award. Picking up the award in Minneapolis, Minnesota, USA, Prince dedicated it to his colleagues in the newsroom. It's the second time a multimedia journalist has picked up this award in the same category. Last year, Joseph Opoku Gakpo, head of our Agric Science and Technology Desk, won it. And Bono East correspondent Anas Sabit Anas was adjudged the most promising journalist at the maiden Brongahafo GJA Awards, which also happened over the weekend. Congratulations to our 2 colleagues. Indeed, we are joy. All right, well, that's it for the bulletin. There's more on the AM show. Stay exactly where you are. We're back right after these messages with all the newspapers from today.